to take advantage of the relative instability of the succession to seize some land. But they come to an agreement. Okay? Everything is going to be fine. And then John gets married. And that screws everything up. It's one of the most disastrous marriages in English history. For a number of reasons, but one reason is because of who the bride is, and particularly because of where she comes from. This is Isabel of Angoulême. Angoulême is a small territory in southwestern France. The problem with Angoulême is that it adjoins the county of La Marche. And La Marche was ruled by a family that were constantly rebelling against King John. Now, John did not want the Count of La Marche to marry Isabel of Angoulême. They were engaged. So he wanted to block that marriage because he feared that if these two territories were united, then there would be this big indigestible block of rebel territory in the heart of his French dominions. So he doesn't want this marriage to go forward. So what is his solution? He marries the bride himself. He scoops in, takes the bride, marries her himself, and oh, by the way, they had been postponing this relationship, the Count of La Marche and Isabel, because the bride was 12 years old. But the king marries her anyway. Now, this might have been okay if the king had compensated the Count of La Marche for stealing his fiancée. But John was just the sort of guy not to do that. It would have been much better if he'd say, well, I'm sorry, I took your fiancée, but here is some extra land, here is a payment, it's all good. He didn't do that. He basically thumbed his nose at his own vassal, and that caused the Count of La Marche to appeal to the King of France. Because, of course, the King of France is the overlord of both the Count of La Marche and the King of England. So he appeals to the King of France, and the King of France has just been waiting for an opportunity to do something against King John. And here this is delivered to him on a silver platter. Because, of course, John has violated the rights of his vassal in taking the fiancée without compensation. And so the King of France confiscates the lands that the King of England owns in France. And then he actually makes good on the confiscation by force of arms. And he invades Normandy and he conquers it. Now, the King of England has lost all the land in France, or lots of it, okay? And particularly the land that people actually cared about, Normandy. And this is a complete disaster. Kings of France, or kings of any kingdom, are not supposed to lose land. If anything, you're supposed to increase it, not lose land. And now John is in a bind because he has to try to get the land back. He needs to pay for the reconquest. He can't pay for it because now all of a sudden he's not getting any revenue from that